Yes, that's weird.
Okay.
Okay, do you have your own bedroom, Jed? Oh yeah. And what do you have in your bedroom besides your bed? Surfing pictures, basketball pictures, and Sports Illustrated pictures, and bookshelves, and my clothes closet, and some other things of my personal stuff. Okay, and does your sister Rhonda have a room of her own? Yes, she does. And where is Rhonda's room? Is it next to yours? No, it is. My room is across the hall from hers. Okay. How far would you say your room, the door of your room, is from Rhonda's room? About 15 to 20 feet. Do your mom and dad have a bedroom in your house too? Yes, they do. And where is your mom and dad's bedroom? Theirs is sort of crossways from both of ours. Okay. Now, Jed, I want you to tell us about something that happened about 6 weeks ago that was probably pretty scary for you. Do you remember going to bed some night in Rhonda's room? I was in my maid's bedroom and she was giving me a little back rub while my dad came, while she woke me up and said, okay, let me just get into this, Jed. Do you remember being asleep some night and being awakened in the middle of the night? Yes, I do. And where were you sleeping that night? I was sleeping on the left side. In which room, Jed? My sister's room. And was your sister in there with you? Yes, she was. How old is Rhonda? She is 15. Okay. Well, what is the first thing you remember when you awoke at that time? I said, shut up, because I thought it was my Uncle Danny and one of his friends playing a joke on us. What was it that made you think that? What happened right before you thought that? Because I can hear his voice and it sounded just like my Aunt Dory. She has a boyfriend and it sounds just like him. And I thought they were playing a joke. And after you made that statement about shut up, what did you see happening at that time? They were getting my sister out of bed. She said, come on, Jed, and a light screen. Okay. How many people were in the room besides you and your sister? Nobody. When you were awakened, how many people were in the room besides you and your sister? I don't get that question. Okay. When you thought this joke was going on, were there some people in the room with you and your sister? Yes, there were two of them. Okay. Could you see those people at that time? A little bit. Okay. Could you tell us what you could see of them at that time? Just dark clothes. Did you see whether any of those people had anything in their hands? No. Okay. What was the lighting like in your room at that time? Were there any lights on? I can't remember. Okay. What did you see happening to your sister Rhonda? And they told her to get up, and I didn't think she would get up, but she got up. And I thought they were playing a joke, so she got up and she said, come on, Jed, get up. So I had to get up, and they just got us out of bed and started taking us downstairs. Okay. Did you go downstairs? Yes, I did. And where is the first place that you went when you went downstairs? I went to my dad and kneeled down. Excuse me? I went to my dad and kneeled down. Okay. And was anybody with you at that time, Jed? Just my sister right behind me. Okay, was there some other person who was with you besides your sister? No, just the two robbers. Okay. What did they tell you to do at that time? When I kneeled down to my dad, they said, come on, let's get going. Where was your dad when you were kneeling down? He was about 8 feet from the stairs, at about 3 feet from the pool table. Okay. What was your dad doing at that time? He was laying down with his head turned to the wall and his hands and legs were tied up. Could you tell us what his hands and legs were tied with? I didn't know, but I can't remember. Did the people who you were talking about besides Rhonda, did they ask you to do something when you got there? I don't understand that question. Okay. After you got down to where your dad was and you were kneeling down, what happened to you at that time? They just said, come on, let's get a move on. And when they said get a move on, where did you go? I went across the pool table and I laid down and I had my hands in front of my face so they would tie me frontwards. And they gave me a sort of light tug and they pulled my hands back and they tied me behind my back and my legs crossed. So your hands were tied up at that time? Yes, they were. And were your legs tied up also? Yeah, on the ground. Do you have any blindfold or anything like that across your eyes? No, I didn't. And when you were tied up, where exactly were you in the house, if you can tell us? Do you want me to tell you all three places? Well, first, I was on the ground. All right, let's try that one again. lives there in your house with you, Jed, and my dad, my mom, and my sister, and my maid is part-time. And do you know the name of your maid? Excuse me? Do you know what your maid's name is? Martha Lopez? Okay. And do you have your own room in your house, part-time? On Saturday and Sunday, my maid lives in there, and Mondays through Fridays. Okay. Do you have your own bedroom, Jed? Oh, yeah. And what do you have in your bedroom besides your bed? Surfing pictures, basketball pictures, and Sports Illustrated pictures, and bookshelves, and my clothes closet, and some other things of my personal stuff. Okay. And does your sister Rhonda have a room of her own? Yes, she does. And where is Rhonda's room? Is it next to yours? No, it is. My room is across the hall from hers. Okay. How far would you say your room, the door of your room, is from Rhonda's room? About 15 to 20 feet. Do your mom and dad have a bedroom in your house too? Yes, they do. And where is your mom and dad's bedroom? Theirs is sort of crossways from both of ours. Okay. Now, Jed, I want you to tell us about something that happened, about 6 weeks ago that was probably pretty scary for you. Do you remember going to bed some night in Rhonda's room? I was in my maid's bedroom, and she was giving me a little back rub while my dad came, while she woke me up and said, okay, let me just get into this, Jed. Do you remember being asleep some night and being awakened in the middle of the night? Yes, I do. And where were you sleeping that evening? I was sleeping on the left side. In which room, Jed? My sister's room. And was your sister in there with you? Yes, she was. How old is Rhonda? She is 15. Okay. What is the first thing you remember when you awoke at that time? I said, shut up, because I thought it was my Uncle Danny and one of his friends playing a joke on us. What was it that made you think that? What happened right before you thought that? Because I could hear his voice and it sounded just like my Aunt Dory. She has a boyfriend and it sounds just like him, and I thought they were playing a joke. And after you made that statement about shut up, what did you see happening at that time? They were getting my sister out of bed. She said, come on, Jed, and a light scream. Okay. How many people were in the room besides you and your sister? Nobody. When you were awakened, how many people were in the room besides you and your sister? I don't get that question. Okay. When you thought this joke was going on, were there some people in the room with you and your sister? Yes, there were 2 of them. Okay. Could you see those people at that time? A little bit. Okay. Could you tell us what you could see of them at that time? Just dark clothes. And did you see whether any of those people had anything in their hands? No. Okay. What was the lighting like in your room at that time? Were there any lights on? I can't remember. Okay. What did you see happening to your sister, Rhonda? They told her to get up, and I didn't. I didn't think she would get up, but she got up. And I thought they were playing a joke, so she got up and she said, come on, Jed, get up. So I had to get up, and they just got us out of bed and started taking us downstairs. Okay. Did you go downstairs? Yes, I did. And where's the first place that you went when you went downstairs? I went to my dad and kneeled down. Excuse me? I went to my dad and kneeled down. Okay. And was anybody with you at that time, Jed? Just my sister right behind me. Okay. Was there some other person who was with you besides your sister? No, just the 2 robbers. Okay. What did they tell you to do at that time? When I kneeled down to my dad, they said, come on, let's get going. Where was your dad when you were kneeling down? He was about 8 feet from the stairs and about 3 feet from the pool table. Okay. What was your dad doing at that time? He was laying down with his head turned to the wall and his hands and legs were tied up. Could you tell us what his hands and legs were tied with? I didn't know, but I can't remember. Did the people who you were talking about besides Rhonda, did they ask you to do something when you got there? I don't understand that question. Okay. After you got down to where your dad was and you were kneeling down, what happened to you at that time? They just said, come on, let's get a move on. And when they said, get a move on, where did you go? I went across the pool table and I laid down and I had my hands in front of my face, so they would tie me frontwards. And they gave me a sort of light tug and they pulled my hands back and they tied me behind my back and my legs crossed. So your hands were tied up at that time? Yes, they were. And were your legs tied up also? Yeah, on the ground. Do you have any blindfold or anything like that across your eyes? No, I didn't. And when you were tied up, where exactly were you in your house, if you can tell us? If you want me to tell you all 3 places, well, first, I was on the ground. I was on the ground about 5 feet from the fireplace. Okay. And could you see any other members of your family at that time? I can't remember. How about Rhonda? Did you know where she was at that point? No. Now, after you were tied up, what did you see these people doing in the house? First they moved me on the couch before I can see anything. Okay. And I saw someone cocking the gun, holding the gun with their whole arm in front of their face, taking the barrel out and loading it. Okay, could you tell us what kind of a gun that was, please? I am pretty sure it was a revolver because he was turning it as he went. Okay. Could you tell what he was putting into the gun? No, I can't. And did it look like anything that you could tell us about? No. What did he do with that gun at the time he was loading it? I turned my head because I was scared. 200 for voice for 15 minutes. Starts with question by defense attorney. Mrs. Wayne, perhaps you can refresh your memory from your bank account. Make sure what I'm telling you is correct. All this shows is that amount of money came in the month that ended 12/16/85. I agree to that, yes. And yes, ma'am, I think that's what I said. You were saying the 16th. The transaction indicates from the records on Exhibit 8 that the house transaction was recorded on November 27th, 1985. So you would have received the money just about that time. Wouldn't you have? That sounds more like it. All right. Now, by that time, you had transferred all this cash down and given it to Arlen? Yes. So the only money you had under your control at that time was the money in the bank account. Is that correct? Under my control? Yes, ma'am. It was in the bank account under our control. Arlen had all the cash, didn't he? Yes. You couldn't get your hands on that, could you? I don't know what you are asking me. Well, I'm just asking you if Arlen had all the cash. You'd have to go to him to get the cash, wouldn't you? Which cash? The cash which you transferred down prior to making the deposit from the house proceeds. No, you wouldn't? Not all of it. Are you telling us now that you didn't give all of that cash, excluding what's in the bank, that you didn't give all of that cash to Arlen? He held all of it at one time, yes. And that was before December 16th, 1985? Yes. Now, did he give any of it back to you? Some of it was given back and put back into put back into the bank to write checks on. How much was given back to you by Arlen? Whatever checks were written, it had to cover the checks. Mrs. Wayne, on December 16, 1985, you had an opening balance of $183,000 in that Bank of America checking account. When? On December 16th, 1985. I wouldn't know. I don't have the records in front of me. Let me show you again. Number 13, which is your bank statement, and I'll leave it there for you so you can look at it. No question pending. On December 16th, 1985, you had that amount of money on deposit, didn't you? Yes. Might I approach? That misstates the bank statement. All right, Mrs. Wayne, I misspoke. I was thinking of your deposit. The statement balance as of December 16th, 1985 was $28,000. That sounds more like, and that's because you took out $140,000 and put them into an investment. Is that correct? Yes, Arlen wanted it invested with this man. Mrs. Wayne, I just asked you if you took it out and put it into an investment. We did that. So at the end of that month, you had $28,000 left? Yes. Now between December and April of 1986, December of 85, and April of 86, did Arlen give you any money back from the cash you had previously given him? No, I don't think so. Where did you get the cash then that you gave to Arlen to give to Richard? There were quite a few withdrawals in that period. We had some cash in the house, and I wrote a check for the balance. Are you referring to cash withdrawals from your checking account? Yes. Mrs. Wayne, you have prepared a register of all your checks. That's Exhibit 12, is that correct? Yes. Do you have a copy of it right there in your lap? I don't know that that's the latest updated copy that you have. Well, I don't either. Why don't I get Exhibit 12 and we'll make sure. Let's turn to the beginning of December. I see there that on December 4, there's the $100,000 to Sierra Capital. Have you found that one? That's a nice big one to get your reference point. Check 450. Check 450? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. One above that. 449. Yes. Now, coming down through December, I see on December 9 a check for $9,000. Excuse me. December 9 a check for $7,000. And then coming down, you see that? Yes, coming right on down, I see another one. Okay. And then coming on down to 470, check number 470, there's another cash check for $2,000. And then on 473, there's a cash for $4,000. I'm sorry, not 473, check number 473. But then on January 13th, there's a check for $4,000. Another one, and on January 21st, there's a check for $4,000. I don't see any checks for cash on the second page, on page 5. Do you? 523, 523, 523, thank you, for $2,000. Here's one on March 25th, check number 548. Did I skip any cash between then, 548? Yes, that one was for $14,478, but that was for the purchase of your Maple Street property, is that correct? Yes. That's one of the apartments or groups of houses that you own. Yes, houses. And so I won't count them. Okay. And the next check I see that would be significant in this is a check to Richard for $4,900, which was part of the final payoff balance, okay? Which number is that? That's a check number 588. Now, I've totaled all those cash payments and they come to $27,000. Is that the money that was used to give to Arlen to give to Richard? That's part of it. Yes, that's part of it. Where did the other money come from? I had some at home in the drawer still for construction purposes. So at the time that you gave the money to Richard, you had at home some $33,000. Well, counting the money we just added up. Weren't you spending any of that money during that period of time on the building? Well, there was additional money before that. That was probably still in the drawer. Well, let me go over your schedule with you again and let's go down. You make little notations as to what things were for. For instance, on your Maple Street property, you said that the $14,000 was for Maple Street. Is that correct? I don't know where you're at on the schedule. Let's go back to check number 457 on December 9, 1985, which is that first big lump sum of cash which I asked you about. I'm going to object to that. Mr. Crafts wants the house money to be here sometime in December. It showed the escrow closed November 27th. If he will start in the check register on November 27th, he will find more monies. He just doesn't get to pick the middle of the chart. Well, I think that be appropriate for Mr. Histon to come back during his examination of his client if he wishes to point that out. Let's start with no question pending. All right. You have down on check 457, you made an indication that $7,000 was used for construction. I made an indication that that's what Arlen told me he wanted the money for. Whether it got used up for that was something else. It was taken out for that, but not necessarily used for that. Would you take out money because Arlen asked for it and give it to him, and would he give it back to you? It was kept in the drawer in the bedroom for him to access at will. You had access to it at will then too, didn't you? Yes. Was any of this previous money that you brought down in cash prior to December, the middle of December of 1985, the $50,000, the $40,000, the $20,000, was any of that in a drawer in a bedroom that he had access to? In the beginning, it was all in the drawer. So at one time when you moved down from Cherry Valley, there was, that would be over $100,000 in cash in the house? Yes. And you kept it in the drawer where? It was at the Simi house in Arlen's closet first. And then when we were out at Cherry Valley full time, we put it in his dresser drawer there. And either of you could open that dresser drawer up and take the money at any time you wanted. It was used up very fast when construction started. He used large amounts, so there wasn't usually $100,000 in the drawer at one time, except at the very beginning. Now, the next check down, check number 464, that's for cash. Did you find it? That says for Arlen's request? Yes. Did you take that money out at Arlen's request? Yes. And by the way, these are checks that are written to cash, is that right? Yes. And do you have any recollection of ever giving a check for cash to Arlen so that he could cash it as opposed to you going down to the bank, cashing the check, taking the money, and then giving the cash to Arlen? He wanted me to cash all the checks. And do you know if he gave you any of that $4,000 back to put in the drawer in the house? Well, he probably put it in the drawer right away unless he paid one of the people working. So would it be fair to say that what was actually going on every time we run across one of these cash checks that you have marked Arlen's request is that the money in the drawer was running a little low and it was time to replenish the cash? We were getting enough together we knew we were going to have to pay Richard. So there we've got $4,000 at Arlen's request. The next large one is $4,486 at Arlen's request. Maybe I missed that when I was examining you on the first time. I got my numbers here, 7, 4, let me see, 7, 4, no, I'm out of line on my own. The next one is $4,000 cash out of this group. Now, your note says that was used for the septic tank, etc. Yes. Do you know that that's what the money was used for the purchase of the septic tank? No. This is what he told me. Do you know if that money went into the drawer? All I know is that that's where it's kept when it's not used. Mrs. Wayne, did you on occasions open this drawer and take the money out and count it to see how much was in it? No, because it was being used and it just kept going in the drawer and out. Was there a septic tank put in at the property about that time? There was a septic tank. I don't remember what time it was put in. So at some time at least a septic tank got paid for? Yes. Did you ever see any records as to how much that septic tank cost? I don't remember if I did or not. It was probably quite a bit. I have photographs of the construction of that. Do you have any way of knowing really from your own recollection whether or not any of that cash, the $4,000, went for the septic tank? I really have to explain this. Can I explain this? Simply yes or no. Will not cover it, will suffice. All right, let's go on to the next check and making up that $27,000. That's another $4,000 check, cash. It says concrete and construction. Do you know that that's what that $4,000 was used for? Originally, I was told it would be, but is that money that went back into the drawer? I would expect so, yes. You have a book with you today with all these checks set out in it, don't you? Yes. May I see that for a moment, Mr. Histon? Now check number 482, would you find that for me? Oh, this is nicely indexed, I noticed when I looked at it. Okay. Now that check is one of the few checks that actually has a notation on it. It says concrete and construction up at the top. Who wrote that up there on there? It's also written on the page. I'm not asking you, I know, I'm going to tell you if I'm given a chance. My father was helping me when I first got out of the situation. I was in very bad shape. I was trying to tell him what they were for, and he noted in pencil at the top of the check, and I told him not to do that. So this is something your father wrote on the check for you a long time after that check was actually written? Yes, but I got the information. I was telling him what the check was for. The information was from my notes, and that's just one check. So that is then money that you really don't know was used for concrete and construction. I was told that it was going to be, but I have a strong indication it was not. It went into this drawer. I suspect it did. And the next one is the $4,000 check at Arlen's request, $4,000. You went down, cashed that check, gave the $4,000 to Arlen? Yes. And did that money go back into the drawer to make up the money that was used to buy out Richard? Yes. Mrs. Wayne? Yes, as far as I know. Mrs. Wayne, did Arlen go to the bank with you when you cashed these checks? No. He would send me to the bank and he would be waiting for the money. So you would come back with the money, you would hand the money to him, and then he would take it and put it in the drawer? Yes. Wouldn't it have been easier if you had just put it in the drawer yourself? Sometimes he wanted to use part of it, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes it was ordered way ahead. He might have needed money out of it to pay Mark, his nephew, and put the rest in the drawer, or buy some other materials for the building, and the balance would go in the drawer, right? Possibly. At that stage of the game, I was so confused. I wasn't keeping very good track. Now, we are still in, I think, January of 1986. You didn't move in with Arlen until, what was it, November of 85? I think you're mistaken. You think I am mistaken? You're off by a year. That's correct. That happened in a 2.5-year relationship. I think I forgot or missed a cash deposit down here, Mrs. Wayne, before the 588 check to Richard. There was a $600 cash check that you have notation that it was to Arlen's request. Yes. I'll show you again Exhibit 18, Mrs. Wayne. Now, this document was prepared on sometime, I suppose, on or before April 19, 1986, because that's the date on it. Is that correct? Yes. And you typed that up. Is that correct? Yes. I think you testified yesterday that the language came from Arlen? Yes. Did you request him to assist you with formulating the language? I didn't request it. He just did it. Did you tell him or ask him or tell him that you needed a receipt from Richard for the $38,000? Yes, I told him that I wanted a receipt. And so then, did he dictate something for you, or did he first tell you, why go ahead and write up a receipt and I'll take it over for Richard to sign it? I wrote something up. He corrected it and I rewrote it the way he wanted it. Now, was the sole purpose in preparing that receipt so you would have a receipt of the money you had paid to Richard, the $38,000 portion? Yes, ma'am, but was the purpose for you doing it solely so you could have a receipt that you paid Richard? For part of the money I paid him, yes. Did you need that receipt for any particular reason? Yes, I gave him $38,000. You obviously needed it to prove you had given him that money at that one time, yes. So you needed that for your personal records? Yes. Was there anything else you needed it for at that particular time? Yes, up to that point, I had no receipts for any of the money that Arlen was taking. At the time that that document was prepared, did you also type up 2 other short documents? Yes. Now, both of these documents, at least one of them is dated January 17th, and the other one is dated that date. But on the signature line and not on the heading, did you type up both of those? Yes. And I gave you everything. Okay. Starts with question by defense attorney. This is a 184 voice for 5 minutes. Ready? Okay. Now, whose idea was it to write the other one here, January 17th, 1986? Arlen.